He was my patient for 15 years. He became an obsession with me until I realized that there was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that was even remotely human.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is. An hour ago, I stood up and fired 6 shots into him. He just got up and walked away. I am talking about the real possibility that he is still out there.
Samhain. It means the Lord of the Dead. The end of summer. The festival of Samhain.
That girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister. She was born 2 years before he was committed. 2 years after, his parents died and she was adopted by the Strodes.
Let's take inventory of what's going on, shall we? You created, through tons of hard work, a horror film that won over the hearts of critics and audiences alike. This movie became the start of the powder keg known as the slasher craze. Tons of films took inspiration from it, including that franchise centered in a New Jersey camp. Halloween 1978 to this day generally stands very high on the list of those who are entitled to a good scare. Enter John Carpenter, tasked with continuing a story that he never wanted to go beyond the final shots of the Myers house with the shape breathing. The question is, what would become of the sequel, and could it light up the genre like Loomis lit the match in Haddonfield Memorial Hospital to take down the boogeyman and everyone in it? Let's get down to brass tacks. In this Why You Hate video, and by the way, I've done several episodes of films that sometimes divides the fans and causes a great discussion for people on both sides of the fence. Check them out in the Why You Hate playlist if you haven't already, or if you need some fun and a good horror discussion, check them out again. It's not going to hurt, I promise.
Well, fuck your shit up, boy.
Also, if you would personally like to help me decide on films for new episodes and much, much more while supporting this channel and community, join our channel membership program by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button. It's a member perk for our movie fanatics level and above. You know you're a movie fanatic. We all are. So as I was saying, I'm going to go over reasons why some fans have issues with Halloween 2 from 1981, including multiple things that I know will be a strong debate in this community for the lovers of this film and the detractors of it. I will also attempt, if at all possible, to show how some issues might not hold as much weight as they seem. I'll touch upon some history and behind-the-scenes info that give a snapshot of this film's journey. So get ready to find out your brother is the literal boogeyman, be frustrated after you shot him 6 times, technically 7, and he didn't die, and get it on with a sexy hot nurse in a hot tub that's too hot for her. Here are the reasons why you hate Halloween 2, 1981. Number 1. Did we need a sequel? Many fans today look at the landscape of the Halloween franchise and ponder its ups and downs. I do the same thing myself. Many things came about because of previous movies and their genius ideas or their horrible mistakes. I've spent countless amounts of time over the years watching the movies, talking about them, learning about the behind the scenes, and of course creating tons of content about it here on my channel. All of it can be found in my Halloween franchise playlist. Check it out if you haven't already.
It's really good.
God damn! What's so spicy?
Skeet skeet. There's no question that I love the franchise and so much of the sequels, but even a lifelong fan like myself can admit that 1978's Halloween stands easily on its own, period. There was no need of a sequel in my opinion. Now I know many fans, and probably some of you watching this, and yes, I mean you, you right there, feel the same way. You didn't enjoy this film, you didn't like Season of the Witch, the return of Michael didn't satisfy you, revenge was served with a tear and a horrible witch mask. The curse was too weird with magic rocks and cults. H2O wanted to be Scream. Resurrection had karate-kicking Busta beat down Michael. You aren't into Rob Zombie's trashy style, and you aren't ready to help a hobo, and you sure don't support the Gordon Green trilogy, especially because Evil dies tonight, and then Corey makes his Christine tryout debut. I think that covers most of the roller coaster of the franchise. Did I miss anything? Take a seat and settle down, people, because guess what? John Carpenter didn't want to make a sequel either.
When the concept of Halloween 2 came along, nobody that I recall on the team was all that excited about the idea. We felt like we'd really done it with Halloween. That was an original, and we left it all out there on the court, so to speak.
He finished his story with 78. He said what he had to say with it. On to the next project. Well, when you make a film that makes a lot of cheddar, studios get excited. And I'm talking about excited like Bud about to score as big as he ever has in his life. And yeah, it was a beautiful score. I'm just saying. Studios always want to make more money. The sequel, unfortunately, was not as successful at the box office as the original Halloween, but it still grossed more money than other 1981 horror movies, such as The Howling, Friday the 13th Part 2, and The Final Conflict. Also, interestingly enough, this is one of the only slasher films in 1981 to remain uncut, like others that have been heavily cut by the MPAA, such as the aforementioned Friday the 13th Part 2 and My Bloody Valentine. Now let's be honest, the MPAA hated Friday the 13th.
It is not in the file. It is not.
And I mean to the bone. If they could have done more to diminish that franchise, they would have made Jason a pocket protector wearing forest ranger at Crystal Lake that is unwillingly part of accidents that happen to campers. They probably almost wanted to censor the name Friday the 13th, but that's another story for another day. Back to Halloween 2 and its roller coaster that is heading to 100 miles per hour with nothing ahead of it to stop it. Trust me, there are more issues that some seem to have. And you know who else was having issues? JC. Yep.
I talked to John Carpenter about it, but he had another idea. He wanted to do another picture as his follow-up. I guess he felt that Halloween 1 was a fluke, or if not that, I think he felt that he didn't want to repeat himself, and I respected him for that. He wanted to do a picture called The Fog, and I said, sure, let's do Fog. We'll do Fog first.
Carpenter felt at the time that the studio hadn't paid him a fair amount of money for the writing and directing of the original film, considering that it had been so profitable. Carpenter was allegedly never paid his salary. When the studio offered him more money to write the script for the sequel, Carpenter accepted the job as well as a producer's credit so that he could earn back what he believed was his owed pay. However, due to the lack of ideas, the script was not forming out as well as he thought.
And you blew it! You blew it!
And he has personally stated that the only thing helping him through the screenplay process was a 6-pack of Budweiser every day. Shout out to you, John. And that led to what he believes an inferior script and had bad choices in the movie's story. He later called Halloween 2, 1981, quote, an abomination and a horrible movie, end quote. Carpenter received a significant back-end percentage for Halloween 1978 years later. He also wasn't a fan of director Rick Rosenthal's first version of the film, believing it to be as scary as an episode of Quincy M.E. For those who are like, what the fuck is Quincy? It was a TV show back in the day that revolved around a forensic pathologist named Quincy, played by Jack Klugman. It was a good show. Shit, it ran for 8 seasons, so it must have been decent. In 1982, the show was canceled, and its replacement show over at NBC was that of a man in his talking car called The Night Industries 2000, which, well, you know the rest of that story. A re-edit of Halloween 2 was done, but Carpenter still found it too tame, so he took over the editing process and sped up the action. He also shot more gory scenes that were added into the film despite Rosenthal's objections. This annoyed Rosenthal because he had wanted the sequel to emulate the way the original avoided explicit violence and gore in favor of well-crafted suspense and terror. In fact, Carpenter had intended for Halloween 2 to do just that, but the success of the new wave of slasher films in 1979 and 1980, most notably Friday the 13th, made him afraid that a film which was scary and R-rated but lacked bloodshed and nudity would do poorly at the box office, leading to the extra graphic material inclusions.
John's thinking on the matter was very clear and simple. You can't argue with the fact that since Halloween got made and all these imitators, horror movies had changed. There was inflation involved in terms of violence and gore and what you saw on screen.
He later said that he thought that Rosenthal didn't have a feeling for what was going on with the film. Rosenthal would go on, of course, to direct Halloween Resurrection in 2002, and well...
We are going to enter a mystery wrapped up inside of a riddle, inside of an enigma. Now, remember this.
That's the stupidest fucking thing I ever heard.
Yeah. Another interesting fact is that Tommy Lee Wallace was originally offered the opportunity to direct this film, having worked as the editor and production designer on the original. He had his own thoughts about where to proceed with the sequel and was excited by the project. However, John Carpenter eventually determined that this film would pick up directly from where the original left off. Despite some disappointment in the story direction, Wallace maintained his interest and was still set to direct, with his name even appearing as director in a 1980 trade ad released by Filmways Pictures. When Carpenter finished the script and presented it to Wallace, he was extremely disappointed to discover the intention to make the film as bloody and violent as the original's imitators, which had used such conventions to ensure their success. When it was realized he had no choice but to include these elements in the film, Wallace withdrew from the project, but he would get his way when he was offered and accepted the next film in the series, Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, in 1982. To me, I always find a lot of interest in how movies get their inspiration and their direction. When you look at it, Halloween 78 was the powder keg that ushered in the films that wanted its success. Friday the 13th was the headliner of that movement, and it ushered in a line of films during the golden age of slashers. Halloween 2 followed in that parade, back and forth, great franchises helping each other. What more could a horror fan ask for? Number 2, I Love You, Bro. An interview with John Carpenter revealed that the whole idea of Michael and Laurie being brother and sister was a consequence of the airing of the original Halloween on television. After NBC had obtained the television broadcast rights, they contacted him with a request for more footage, since the film was too short for the intended time slot. Carpenter, who was making little progress on his Halloween 2 script, then conceived of the whole hidden family connection inspired by The Empire Strikes Back and the Luke, I Am Your Father revelation. The twist allowed him to film additional scenes for Halloween, which retroactively dropped hints to this family connection, such as the scene inside of Michael Myers' cell where the word sister is carved onto the door, and at the same time served as a plot device to get his new script going. Carpenter later said, "The brother thing was awful, just awful. Many people over the years have taken issue with the sibling angle, and some absolutely love it. I see the positive on both sides. Without the angle, you have to find a way to give Michael a purpose for doing what he does. And as a silent killer, that is a tall task indeed. Jason has Crystal Lake, his past, and Pamela as his reason, and that's why those films work no matter who the protagonist is. With the sibling angle, you have a reason, but it's also a corner that you're heading towards, because how many family members can he hunt? Halloween 4 went right to the edge of the cliff and miraculously held on as Michael targeted his little niece. In Halloween 2, we have Dick Warlock, who steps into the shoes as the Shape.
Well, without Dick Warlock, it's nothing, because he's the man behind the death scene.
and he would take care of you, you know, and I think that's what you learn to find in a stuntman, to look for in a stuntman. Because as an actor, he's your link to safety.
The quintessential fastest slow walker of all time was at its peak with Warlock. I mean, if you can't outrun Michael, then you have to re-examine your life and physical capability to run away. To get the role of Michael Myers, Dick Warlock revealed that as he passed by a room, the Michael Myers mask was on a table. He put the mask on and walked into Rick Rosenthal's office and stood there. After Rosenthal continuously asked him who he was and he didn't reply, he took off the mask and asked if he could play Michael Myers. But according to Warlock, Deborah Hill was on the set throughout the shoot, including his stalking scenes. And at one point, he asked her about the slow walk, and she replied, "It's fine, keep doing that." After the release of the film, she said in an interview that he walked too slow and didn't resemble Nick Castle's portrayal. This angered Warlock immensely, as he felt while present during the shoot, she could have voiced her opinion so he could have altered how he walked. I mean, I love Deborah Hill, I truly do. She is sorely missed and was immensely talented and integral to Halloween and the success that it has had. But if what Dick is saying is accurate, how could you not see his walking being slow? The world went on a lunch break while he was walking down those steps in the hospital, literally defying the laws of gravity. Damn, Michael Myers is beyond science. Maybe she didn't want to say anything to him, maybe she did. We'll probably never know for sure, but I don't see any reason why Warlock would lie about it. Jamie Lee Curtis returns as Laurie Strode. She still has the charisma and innocence that comes through whenever she's on screen, which is criminally less than in 78. Shout out to the wig that she rocks.
She had like circa early 80s short hair, and so she wore this wig and she was always like pissed off at the wig.
As a matter of fact, shout out to our friend, co-moderator, and devoted channel member Julie, who definitely keeps track of hair and when it is on or off point. Laurie is the target of Michael, and she is at a huge disadvantage, physically, surrounding-wise, and information-wise. She has no clue that Michael is coming for her. She doesn't know that she is his sister. Again, the criticism of her depiction in this film is more than fair. Carpenter could have and should have found a way to make her more prominent in the story. Perhaps she wouldn't be so doped up. Perhaps she was moving around more. Maybe she was going through physical therapy, and then that way we could have had more scenes with her. The person who is prominent and works amazingly is Loomis, of course.
You know, throughout your career, you meet people and you work with them and you say, man, I worked with Spielberg and Jim Cameron and so on, and I got to work with those people. He's one of them. He's one of the people that was really a treat to be with.
Back on the hunt with Deputy Hunt, tracking down Michael, Loomis is in full Van Helsing mode, and it is glorious. One of the strongest aspects of the film, in my humble opinion.
He knew that this little role had suddenly gave him new legions of moviegoers as followers, and so he was easy. He was key, by the way. In my opinion, he was the glue that made the sequels possible.
One thing that is also interesting about Halloween 2, 1981, is a lot of folks forget about Michael's ability to take damage. I've heard many criticisms, especially in the last several years, like Halloween Kills and how he took on the entire town of Haddonfield and survived multiple gunshots and basically a full case of ass whoop. But this is something that's been established right from the beginning of the franchise, if you think about it. Michael Myers was shot a total of 14 times in the film, 7 before he escaped from the Doyle residence, an inconsistent continuation from the first film, 5 after he confronted Dr. Loomis, Laurie, and Nurse Marion Chambers at the front door of the clinic, and twice by Laurie in the operating room. Put it clear, Michael Myers is one tough SOB. Number 3, the emptiest hospital of all time. One common criticism is that the hospital is too conveniently dead, even for a night shift, for Michael to be able to walk around unnoticed and kill hospital staff. Rick Rosenthal himself said that he based this on a personal experience with his wife, where they once attended a hospital late at night and it was completely deserted, save for a few doctors, nurses, and patients. Well, let me just say, I've never been in a hospital like that, and I sure as hell don't want to be in one. Haddonfield Memorial Hospital is the least populated hospital ever on film. No one is there. I mean, with all the cars in the parking lot, you'd think it was a place with people, but nope. Folks must have just parked there because it was free parking and headed across the way to the store for snacks. A setting like this does work for a horror film though, and as a kid, I was supremely creeped out by it and actually had a dislike of hospitals for a long time. Thanks, Halloween 2, I appreciate that. The bottom line is don't get sick in Haddonfield because that hospital has zero popularity and endorsement.
Here. We're fine. It is not in the file. It is not. You son of a bitch!
I mean, yeah, you have hot nurses, but drunk doctors and elevators with no safety features are a no-no. Number 4, the mask, goofs, kills. If you've been around this channel long enough, then you know how I feel about bad masks in Halloween films. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous. Atrocities that should never have happened for a top-tier horror franchise like this. Times when the damn mask looked like Nick Cage, blonde-haired Michael. Shit, times when he didn't even wear the torn-up 2/3 of a mask. I'm looking at you, Hobo Myers. See my Why You Hate Halloween 2 from 2009 for the full story. You thought I forgot, but I didn't.
Filthy, dirty hippie.
I also didn't forget when it wasn't even real. The CGI super decision in H2O. Smart choice. You better head back to Genius University. Anyway, fortunately, the mask in Halloween 2, 1981 is fine, and the last good mask that we got until Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers in 1995. The mask Michael wears is the exact same mask, a repainted and modified Captain Kirk mask worn in the original Halloween. It looks different in the sequel because the paint had faded due to a few reasons. First, because Nick Castle, the original Michael, kept it in his back pocket during shoots. Also, Deborah Hill kept the mask under her bed in a box for several years until the filming of Halloween 2, causing it to collect dust and yellow because Hill was a heavy smoker. Also, the mask appears whiter because Dick Warlock is shorter and stockier than Nick Castle, so the mask fits his head differently. As the producers thought it would be the final sequel in the series, they let Warlock keep the mask, scalpel, boots, jumpsuit, and knife used in the filming. Smart move, guys. When they decided to revive Michael in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers in 1988, the producers realized that they had made a huge mistake and never again gave props out to the cast and crew. Therefore, subsequent sequels used different masks that looked rather different. And when I say different, a lot of them looked like shit.
And you blew it! You blew it!
Now, let's talk about a goof that truly brings a smile to my face, which is kind of odd. In the original Halloween, Dr. Loomis fires 6 shots from his revolver to stop Michael. In this movie, during the replay of the scene from the first movie, he fires 7 shots. And also, when Michael falls from the terrace, there's an obvious ramp leading to the top of the railing, which is now at the front of the house, where in the original, it was at the back of the house. Some fans feel as though the kills in Halloween 2 are inferior to 78, even though the violence was ramped up big time. That disappointment is a bit baffling to me, I must admit. I enjoy these kills for the most part, and I feel that they are very effective and also show creativity, which would become a hallmark for the franchise. One of the best kills was the hot tub scene. I mean, it has it all, literally.
You're goddamn right.
But in all seriousness, it is very brutal. According to the documentary on the Blu-ray releases of the film, Leo Rossi and Pamela Susan Shoop were not too keen on doing the hot tub scene, with a distressed Shoop refusing to do it. Even though Rossi was reluctant at first, after director Rick Rosenthal talked to him, Rossi comforted Shoop into doing the scene due to the fact that Rossi felt he really owed it to Rosenthal, who had gone to bat to get him the role of Bud. Also, Pamela, who played Karen, got an ear infection during the filming of her death scene as the water in the hot tub was apparently not too clean. meaning there was some shit in there. Shout out to Pamela for doing the scene anyways and making it classy, all seriousness, even though she wasn't wanting to do it at first. Fun fact that really gets me, according to the original script, there was a scene depicting the blonde reporter's death. Her car was supposed to break down on the side of the road, with her getting assistance from a guy who hits on her. With her responding in disgust, the truck driver then leaves her, and after the tires were replaced, she opens the trunk to Michael Myers, who then kills her and takes the car as a nod to what he did in the first film. This was the original way that he gets away from where his house was to the hospital. Makes sense to me. In other words, Michael is still riding dirty. The scene with the boombox kid was part of the extra shooting scenes that Carpenter did and has the explanation of how Michael knew where Laurie was. Oh, and that kid is one of Warlock's sons. Around 5.5 months after this movie was released, another horror hospital picture with a crazed killer launched called Visiting Hours in 1982. Both films featured a skull on their main movie posters. For Halloween 2, it was superimposed over a pumpkin, and for Visiting Hours, it was formed as a pattern of switched-on lights within the darkened shaped building of the hospital building. The theme music for Visiting Hours was modeled after John Carpenter's iconic Halloween music score, which is also featured in Halloween 2. The exterior hospital scenes shot with Dick Warlock as the Shape were shot at Morningside Hospital in Los Angeles. In Society from 1989, the exterior hospital scenes were also shot at Morningside Hospital. What makes this pretty cool is that Billy Warlock, Dick's son, was the lead actor in Society from 1989. Now, if you have been on this channel for a while, and as I've said in tons of live streams on this channel, he just always messed something up with the ladies. Do better, Billy. Do better. At the end, Hunt asks, "What's the count?" and is told 10 so far, but altogether there are 13 victims between the first and second movies. There's the mechanic in the first movie, where Loomis finds the truck with the hospital gown and where Michael got his coveralls, and also poor Alice, the first victim in Halloween 2, who either hasn't been found yet, or in actuality her death was filmed by John Carpenter in post-production to get one more kill to make it scarier. If you're counting the novels based on the 2 movies, there are 2 additional victims. One is a guard who is killed at Smith's Grove the night Michael escapes, and also the female news producer is killed when she discovers Michael has stowed away in her trunk while trying to fix a flat tire, which is how Michael drove himself to the area where the hospital is. That's not including poor Lester, the German Shepherd, and the dog that he ate at his house. The other standout kill, and maybe the best as far as atmosphere and the way it was shot, was Emerging from the Dark redone. I absolutely love this scene, and it might be even better than the first version in '78. After the nurse discovers Dr. Mixter's body, Michael emerges from the shadows precisely as he did at one point in '78. Maybe just like in the first film, the viewer's eyes adjust to the darkness in time to see him, meaning he was there the whole time. Absolute awesomeness that illustrates Michael from A to Z, the Shape emerging from the shadows. Number 5, the finale. Let's be clear, Laurie Strode doesn't have much to do in this film. Jamie Lee Curtis has like 30 minutes of screen time, but the finale is when she gets going. She is injured and doped up. That moment when Nurse Jill calls out her name and the boogeyman appears and does the lift kill, holy Shape, it's on.
My death scene, they had me in the Mary Poppins harness, the actual one with the wires. And it's painful because they press against you. Very bruised, very bruised. Then when we were done, Dick came up to me and he said, "I'm gonna bump your pay. You're getting stunt pay today." I thought, huh?
The music cuts in and all of a sudden the film jumps up 3 gears. Laurie has to get away. She hobbles through the halls, down the stairs, shout out to Dick again for the anti-gravity walk, and into the slowest elevator of all time. Loomis is on the way now that he has been told, and us as well, by Nurse Marion that Laurie is Michael's sister.
That girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister.
Laurie can't run, she can't drive away either. Although she should have limped in my opinion. Just get the hell out of there. She sees Loomis and company get to the hospital and decides to go back in as Michael pursues her. Can we just again put a knock on the hospital for that breakaway glass on the door? I mean, a grandmother could walk through that.
And you blew it! You blew it!
The timer is activated for Laurie and Loomis to survive or die. Laurie shows off her SEAL Team 6 shooting skills in an iconic moment of imagery where Michael has the tears of blood. Although, it doesn't make any damn sense.
Yay!
And then it happens. Loomis makes the choice of choices. The needs of the one outweighs the needs of the many. He sacrifices the entire east wing of the hospital as he blows it up just to kill Michael Audrey Myers. Loomis takes out whoever is in that part of the hospital. You do the math, I'm just saying. Michael's on fire. Great fire burn stunt, by the way, and he dies. He is dead.
Inconceivable!
Carpenter wrote it like that to end Loomis and Michael for good. Period. Until Season of the Witch failed at the box office and Michael was brought back in 4. Number 6, franchise impact. This film basically made Halloween a franchise. Deciding to lean into Michael gave it an identity. Of course, 3 sidestepped that, but it was realigned in 4. The whole idea of Laurie versus Michael was born here for better or for worse. It provided a path, albeit a narrow one, for the stories and reasons for them afterwards. Those who champion Halloween 2 see it as an extension of 1, and many enjoy it as a double feature, including myself. Detractors hate the fact that it rides the coattails of 78 and is supposedly boring with low action from the final girl that they grew to love beforehand. It is a debate with many angles for everyone involved, including the co-creator of both stories, John Carpenter, and I think that's what makes it such an interesting entry in the franchise. At the end of the day, Halloween 2 got horror fans hotter than Nurse Karen in the hot tub. And we as fans must deal with it in our own way. You have to ask yourself, was Halloween 2 a good movie? Was it worthy? Or did it betray what Carpenter and company created in 1978? That is a question only you can answer. As always, this video, and I've said this time and time again, although I keep seeing it in the comments, this is not to make you love Halloween 2 or to hate it. It's simply a discussion to highlight the history and aspects of it, good or bad, with you, the viewer, and this community. So what do you think? Are you a fan of Halloween 2, 1981? If so, tell us why. If not, let's discuss why you hate Halloween 2. If you haven't hit the like button for more content, please do. If you're not subscribed to the Nightwatch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and become part of this fantastic movie community where you'll never love and talk about movies the same. If you like this video, check out my other Why You Hate videos, live streams, and other content here, and I'll see you there. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.